All right, gang. Welcome aboard once again. We're going to give this another try. We had a little minor problem here. Welcome to the August 28th, 2016 edition of the weekly Mac Forum video chat. Hopefully, we'll get this one off the ground a little bit better than we did a few minutes ago. Apologies for having you wait just a few minutes. Let's go ahead and dive right into things. First of all, uh, a minute ago, when I set this up, our newest member was someone named Christopher. And currently, I see from the main page that our newest member is someone called Path Runner. So, welcome aboard to both of them and to all of our new members who have joined in the previous week. And we're going to move on right now and dive right into some of the things that are going on in the forum. First of all, as you can see from the screenshot there, one of our members, Jaguar Mac, had a question about uh, screen full screen mode and how to exit full screen mode. Now, as some of you may already know, full screen mode occurs when you do not have this menu bar at the top of the screen. Okay, up here at the top of all the programs, all the Mac programs that we're familiar with. Normally, if you click the little green button, it takes you into full screen mode. And then there are two ways to get out of screen full screen. One, as you just saw, scroll your mouse up to the very top where that menu bar should be, and it comes back. The other way out, let me go back, and now you see we're in full screen mode. Now, if I scroll here and I click, now I'm out a full. I can bring that menu back up. But if I want to get out of full screen mode, the other way to do it is to just hit the escape key. And that brings me out of full screen mode. And as you can see the edge of my desktop there, which is a good indication that we're out of full screen mode. And Ian, one of our members, pointed out that the behavior of that green button has changed a little bit over the last couple of iterations of OS 10. And if you option click on the green button, what it does is opens the window to accommodate the text or whatever's there. Let me see if I can demonstrate that to you again. Okay, here you can see the window is not quite wide enough for everything that I have set to display. So if I option click, it strings it out so that it's a little bit wider, but I can also stretch it out, of course, and that's usually where I have my window, so that web page takes up the entire window. I'll post a link to that thread, so you'll have an idea how to go about getting out of uh, the full screen mode, because there are times when you don't need it. Okay, and let's go ahead and move on to another of our member questions. As you can see right there, I've got a message waiting for me, but the one that I want to show you now comes from Mike from Mensa. And Mike is working. Mike from Mesa, excuse me. I promoted him to a member of Mensa. I don't know. He might be, but Mike from Mesa, let's try that again, had this question about formatting camera cards, the memory cards from cameras. And typically, what he has been doing is using his camera to take some pictures and then putting that card into a card reader attached to his Mac and copying the photos off onto the Mac and then formatting the card. Well, now here's the problem that he was encountering. When you insert a memory card into the Mac, OS 10 tries to launch Photos, the current Mac photo editing application. And he did not want it to do that. So he would tell it not to launch. And then he'd go ahead and do what he needed to do with the card, copy the photos, format the card. And then the next time he put that same card back in the Mac, once again, it would launch Photos and this whole cycle would start all over again. The reason that's happening is that when you reformat one of these cards, the OS sees that as a new card. In other words, it does not understand that this is the same card that you had in there yesterday and you told it not to open photos. So that's an ongoing thing. It recurs. So if you, let's say that you put the card in today, you copy all your material off of it, you format the card, you put it in your camera, you take some more pictures. When you come back tomorrow and you put the card back in, OS 10, because that card has been formatted and is has different from what it was like yesterday, sees it as a different device. Therefore, you have to tell it once again, no, I don't want you to do this. Um, so there is a fix for this. Let me get to the right window here, and you can see it. One of our forum members posted a way to stop this from happening, and it involves going into terminal. I have a link to this uh, tip in the show notes. I haven't tried this one yet. It seems to work though, from everything that I read. I haven't tried it personally because I'm not using memory cards at the moment. And besides, those of you who are longtime listeners or have been around the forum for a while, you know that terminal gives me the hives. Okay. I do suggest though that you, if this is a problem for you, check this thread out. It will give you some ideas how to solve this situation. Um, all right, let's move on to a few other things. Um, there's the one about editing full screen, but we're going to move on to that. We talked about that. Now, something else that I wanted to mention to you. This comes from Graham Cluley writing in the Mac Security blog, and it goes back to July 16th of last year. I think we have mentioned this on the forum before, but I had someone ask about this recently, an iPhone user that I know asked about this recently. So I thought it might be good to mention it again. Um, some of you may know that occasionally you will get a browser window. Let's say you're surfing on your Mac. Sometimes you'll get a browser window telling you your Mac has been infected. Please call 1-800 so and so, and we will help you. And if you dial that number, they will ask for your credit card information or other things of that nature, other identifying information. That is not a number associated with Apple, by the way. And so these things are now popping up from time to time on iOS devices. And I thought this would be a good. This is a good article to clue you in as to what is happening. It's essentially the same kind of browser hijack that occurs on the Mac. Your solution, in the Mac, what you do is you turn off your network connection, you open the browser in question, and you clear the browser history and the cache. And essentially, that's what you're going to do on the iPhone. It's a little bit easier to get to this on the iPhone. What you want to do is go into settings, put your iPhone in airplane mode. And as you know, airplane mode cuts off all of your essentially cuts off your communication with the outside world. So you won't have internet access. And that's okay because to do the rest of this procedure, you don't need it. Now you're going to go into settings and tap Safari and then tap clear history and website data. And that's going to clear out the cache of whatever page is causing this error. Now, some users have reported that they have also had to turn on a setting called block pop ups in Safari. And that's something that I had not really noticed, in part because I generally keep pop up blocking turned on anyway. I'm not a big fan of pop up windows, and I'm occasionally I have one get past. I have pop up blocking turned on just about every device that I use, Mac or Windows. Just about every browser version that I use, I have pop-up blocking turned on. And I have to tell you, it really annoys me from time to time. Something will get past the pop up blocker, and it really annoys me when it does, particularly if I'm accessing on my iPad or my iPhone, which I don't do a lot of web surfing on either of those devices. But when I do, I don't want to be disturbed by pop ups for things that have nothing to do with what I'm looking for. Um, Also, this week in the iPhone information, let me move over to that page. We're moving through things real quickly this evening. Um, this past week, during no, about midweek, Apple posted iOS 9.3.5. If you're thinking, well, 9.3.4 was just released a little bit ago, why did they do 9.3.5 so quickly? It was to get on top of a series of spyware threats that together came to be called Trident, and they wanted to post a fix for that. Some of the things that I've read suggest that some of these problems have been around since iOS 7 days. Um, so they've been around for a little while, but they're plugging that now because it's popped up a little more recently. And essentially, what happens is it's a phishing thing. You get sent a text with a link to a page, and that URL leads to a page that has that's been compromised and will try to secure as much of your data as it can. It will what it will try to do is give the whoever the attacker is access to your messages, calls, emails, and the logs to a whole variety of applications. So you'll definitely, if you haven't already done that, I know some people are reluctant to add updates. If you haven't already done that update, it's one that I highly recommend doing. All right. Also from the Mac Security blog, and this is something that came out this week. If you remember last week, I told you that in the coming days, I was going to have something out about upgrading to the next OS, which is Mac OS Sierra. And I still plan to do that. But in the meantime, our good buddy Kirk McLaren, AKA Kirk the iTunes guy, has an update, some information for those of you that might be thinking about upgrading to Sierra. And he walks you through a process that I think is pretty good, starting with asking yourself whether your equipment is capable of running Sierra. And in the article, he has um, a list of the Mac equipment that will run Sierra. As you can see, you're going to need a 2000 or later MacBook or iMac, and the 2010 or newer MacBook Air, MacBook Pro series, a Mac Mini from 2010 or later, or a Mac Pro from 2010 or later. And that's the easy part of the equation. Now, I think officially the memory requirements have stayed at 2 gigabyte of RAM, but I must tell you, almost everyone in our forum takes that 2 gigabyte of RAM suggestion not only for Sierra but for El Capitan as something of a joke. It's not that it won't run on 2 gigabyte. It is to run well, you're going to need more than that. If you're running single applications that are not too memory intensive, 4 gigabyte may work well for you. As a general rule, we're kind of suggesting to our members that if they can swing it financially, 8 gigabyte is a better deal for running both El Capitan and Sierra well. I can tell you, I've been running the Sierra Beta. I ran it part of the time on 8 gigabyte, and I'm now running on 16 at the moment. It runs on 8 gigabyte, and it, the stuff that I've thrown at it so far hasn't really stressed 8 gigabyte very much. So if you can only do eight, that's fine. I think you'll be okay. Um, a couple of other things you want to know about Sierra. Here's how you can identify which Mac you're using. If you don't know, go into the uh, Apple menu and choose About This Mac, and you'll see the screen that's right here on this web page, and it will tell you some technical information about your machine, such as what type of machine it is and when it was made. And as you can see in that screenshot from this website, it will show you even the serial number of your Mac. Serial number is not that important, but the that section that's outlined right there in red is. That's going to tell you what model of Mac you have, and it's going to give you an idea of what you need. You're going to need also 9 to 10 gigabyte roughly of hard drive space to perform the upgrade. The reason that you're going to need that much, some of it is for the OS itself, but it needs a little room, working room for some temporary files that are used during the installation. So count on needing somewhere on the order of 9 to 10 gigabyte of free space to do the installation. And as far as day to day operation, I'm going to follow through and suggest probably that you will best benefit from having 15 to 20% free space on your OS 10 boot partition. And the reason for that is the swap files that are created. This current edition of the beta seems to be managing that process well. But if you've been around a Mac for a while, you know that if you don't have some free space on that boot drive, things really start to bog down. And even though Sierra handles memory and handles those swap files well, you can expect that to be the case as well. And keep in mind, just because you could run Sierra on your system doesn't mean that it'll run it well. Uh, that's I think that's going to be a kind of a wait and see thing. Some of the systems, a lot of information has not come out yet on the from the beta in terms of which ones run well and which ones don't, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Betas are not always necessarily a good indication of whether a particular machine will run. Your goal in a beta is to get it in the hands of some experienced users and get a better picture of how things handle and squash any bugs that might rear their ugly heads. And I'm going to suggest to you the same thing that I've said about every other OS since the dawn of time, basically. If you are not comfortable troubleshooting issues, uh, don't run the beta. Don't run the beta and don't run the initial release for the first couple of weeks after it's been out. Let somebody else be the guinea pig. Let people like me take that kind of torture. You know, I happen to think this is fun. My wife thinks that I'm nuts, but that's okay. We know better, don't we? Um, anyway, you don't want to, what you're going to want to do is wait a couple of weeks. Let somebody else be um, the guinea pig for it, particularly if you're new to the Mac or I know a lot of my Mac using friends, they want to use their Mac. They don't want to troubleshoot their Mac. Okay, if you fall in that category, then stay away from new OS releases for the first couple of weeks after they're released. I'm not saying that the new release is going to be bad. What I'm saying is you can't squash every possible bug, and the first couple of weeks, you're going to see a ton of things on the internet from people saying you're going to probably see a lot of complaints saying that it's the worst OS to come down the pipe since, they were writing on stone tablets. That happens every time we have a release. The reality is something different from that. Most users are not going to have a problem, but there's always instances where a particular piece of software doesn't work well or hardware doesn't work well. And if you don't want to troubleshoot those issues, just lay back for a little while. Let somebody else take the heat. All right. And if Apple stays on its usual release schedule, you can probably look for that Sierra release sometime in early to mid October. I don't have any inside information on that. That's just my guess based on previous releases and when they've hit the public. All right. And finally, this week, another piece from my buddy Kirk McLaren. And this is something I stuck in here just kind of as an interesting read. um, those of you that send email from your iPhone or your iPad know that if you, unless you change it at there's a little signature that gets appended to an email that you send from iOS devices that says sent from my iPad or sent from my iPhone. Well, at one time, that was considered kind of some people considered that little signature kind of rude, and they took it to mean either that you didn't know how to change the signature or you were bragging about the fact that you had an iPhone. Well, then we went through a period of time where a lot of people had changed their signature because of that kind of thinking. And now you're seeing that sent from my iPad or iPhone signature reappear, um, for a different reason. It's not always because the user doesn't know how to change it, as much as it is, it's kind of a warning to whoever reads the email. This may not be as detailed as emails that I normally send, or may have a few more typos than I normally send in an email. Basically, I'm typing on a mobile device. You might see a few more typos, a few more errors of that nature. So just cut me a little slack, kind of thing. I thought you might find that an interesting read, stuck in there strictly for interest this week. So that gives us a few good tips and tricks for the OS and for the iPhone, iPad with that security update. I do encourage you to add that if you haven't already. Go ahead and check that out. Remember that the way the iOS handles updates, it's going to either be looking for like something like 50% of battery life or the fact that you're plugged in, because it does take a little bit of time. It took a few minutes to update on some phones. I haven't put it on my iPhone yet because I'm running the beta of iOS 10, but that in and of itself takes a little while. Um, but that's going to just about do it for this week, guys. I hope that you've enjoyed the information that we have for you. I'll have the show notes up in just a little bit. I've already got these pretty much in good form. So I'll have those up in a few minutes. I'll have a link to where you can find those. And I see that I didn't get the show notes up from last week. I'll try to type something up that's kind of coherent and put those links up as well. Look for that no later than tomorrow. I may have them out tonight. But the links for this show will definitely be up within the next half hour or so. So I want to thank you for joining us. And until next week, this is your host, Sylvester Rock, aka Sly Dude. I'll see you in the forum. And if you've got a question for the show to cover, post it in the thread, in the show thread there that's in the community announcement section. I'll be glad to take a look at it and see if we can answer or share any thoughts that you might have. I'll see you next week, guys.